Bam, 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 bam. So I'm honored to be sitting here with you again, David. It's been, 2 years since we've last really connected since the conscious convergence in Guatemala, and we're in Peru today, 2 years later. So I was wondering if you would share with us a little bit about what your journey has been like over the past couple of years.
Okay. Well, we tried some of our ideas in Guatemala, and some of them played out and are developing, and other ones haven't. So there's a few projects going in different directions. Still like a loose network of people collaborating rather than like one focal group working on one project. Since then, I've been still visiting communities in Central America and South America and seeing what exists already for inspiration and ideas. And I'm down here in Peru right now doing that, and also studying the art of curing using plants, curing mind, body, and spirit.
Okay, so I want to jump into the plant medicine study in just a second. But I want to actually ask you a little bit about what you've seen in terms of development over the last 2 years. Has there been more of an explosion of conscious communities? Have you noticed that people are actually more and more people are starting to feel this way and build communities?
Right.
Has there been a trend one way or another that you can share with us?
Yes. I think there are a lot of projects starting right now, and there's a lot of people looking for these kinds of opportunities to learn and experience what's already out there. When I was still supervising volunteers on the farm in Guatemala, we had many people coming, like interested at some point, 15 people on site, which was too much for me to manage.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of people starting, and there's a lot of people asking me, what do you think about doing one here or there in Peru or in different countries, and where would you set up a community for long-term sustainability, environmental and political. So yeah, there's a big upsurge of interest in the movement, I would say.
So the interest is there, but are people actually planting roots and creating these communities, or are they just sort of looking at investigating places to actually set up a community and trying to figure out the best way to do it?
Right. So there's both going on. Yeah, there's a lot of communities that I've met people who have started them in the last 2 years, for example, like a surprising amount in many different countries. And there's also a lot of people looking and seeing, like 5 years down the line, I want to start my own, so I want to go somewhere else first and learn about if this is really what I want to do and how to do it. And so yeah, there's both, definitely. There's a lot of new ones starting.
What would you say the biggest consideration for creating a successful community would be?
I would say there's two. One of them is a common vision that everyone shares. So you make sure ahead of time that everyone really wants the same thing and everyone else understands that, because otherwise, if that's not clear at the beginning, 2 years down the line, you're going to have a lot of problems that we're experiencing. The other one is cohesion between the founding members. So make sure you really know these people well beforehand, because some things may come out later that you didn't expect.
And both of those are really tied to each other, aren't they? And if the vision is clear, does a creative or does a sustainable community function well as a like a joint, you know, everybody has a vote, everybody has a voice, you know. I want to use the word democracy, but I don't really want to use that word because what we think about democracy is not really what a democracy is. But in terms of everybody having a voice and everybody having an equal vote in terms of vision, does that work?
Right, so there's two ways of decision making, main ways in a community, and there's many like variations and middle ground. The first one is called consensus, which is where everyone agrees, or consensus minus one, which is where everyone agrees except one person.
Right.
And that way, you know, on the one hand, nothing's going to happen unless everyone's on board. On the other hand, if there's even one or two people, it's not going to work, and nothing's ever going to get done if you can't do that. The other one is majority, which is just a simple, there's more people that want this than not, so let's do it. And then, you know, everything in between. And those are the two main methods of decision making. So there's, both are being experimented with a lot right now.
What do you think works personally?
What do I think works? Some kind of, some middle ground in between those two. Maybe, say, 3/4 majority. Just what we have in the U.S. Senate, more or less.
Right, consensus with an X amount of number
right.
that doesn't agree.
Just so if there's one or two people that always disagree, just for the sake of being contrarian, then they're not going to prevent the development of the community.
And what, in your mind, what creates a sustainable community?
Well, I guess that word, there's so many different ways it can be interpreted. The basic definition is something that can sustain itself indefinitely, right? So there's a few levels of that. One is like physical, economic, environmental, like the land itself can keep producing for the people and can keep housing them. Another one equally important is if the relationships between community members are sustainable. So if people can keep communicating openly about their issues with each other and keep processing it and not let it build up to the point where tension starts, then that's very important. So like weekly meetings, but I would say not daily because that's almost too much. It's a lot of burden for everyone, and I think it's unnecessary to meet every day. But yeah, once in every few days, it's important to air issues and be really open, and that's an important part of sustaining community life. And financial, right?
Right.
Having sources of income.
Right, makes sense. And as you've started to explore sustainable communities as something that you're focusing on developing, you've gotten more and more involved with the plant medicines. Can you talk a little bit about how that came into your vision in terms of interest and then where you're going with that?
Sure. Well, I guess they're not as at first sight particularly connected to each other, but a lot of the communities you could call sustainable that I'm visiting are indigenous communities that are sustainable by definition because they've been around for thousands of years and have been, stuck in the forest or the mountains without any other choice but to find out how to live. And so they're have this pre-industrial model of sustaining themselves that is not, for them it's not sustainable, for them it's survival. But we have these examples all around the world of tribes, less and less, but there's still quite a few, that are able to pretty much survive indefinitely from nature. And a lot of them use the plants around themselves as medicine as everything, to build houses, to feed themselves, to eat, and to cure themselves of different diseases, mental, physical, spiritual. And so living in these communities, I've been learning about all the different applications of plants.
And can you talk about some of the specific communities that you visited?
So I've been in Guatemala for about 3 years, and I've been in many communities all over. There are many different tribes there, and a lot of them are still somewhat connected to the earth, and others are modernizing pretty quickly. Then let's see. I've seen a tribe that lives on the islands off Panama called the Kuna, who has beautiful artwork, and they have recently been modernizing very quickly, and tourism has really changed their culture a lot and made them start chasing money, which is kind of sad to see. And then...
But also, the Kunas, I know, have a unique situation with the government, that they're connected with the country they're connected
yeah,
with.
they have more autonomy than most tribes, I think. They have a special rights to keep living as they've been living.
And what have you noticed about the way that they govern themselves? Is there something unique in that, or?
Yes, I haven't been there long enough to really understand it well, but the spiritual and political leadership is very mixed together, so there's not too much of a separation, and that's something you see in quite a few indigenous tribes, where the priest figure is also the village leader, kind of a moral, ethical, moral leader. And I saw that as well in Colombia, around the Sierra Nevada. There was a few tribes that had that same model, and I've been living with tribes in Ecuador as well, in the lowland jungle.
So you've spanned different landscapes. You've been in the jungle, you've been in the mountains, you've been at the lake, you've been at sea level. Do you find that there's a difference between besides the obvious, the style of living off of the earth, because you've got different plants depending on where you are, but do you find that there's a different style of governing or functioning as a community depending on where you are?
That's really hard to say, and I don't want to generalize, but I can't really begin. I think it's really more about specific tribes and their own history and their own particular biosphere that they live in, and what's going on around them, their experience with Spanish colonization, and all sorts of different things that will affect that.
Here in Peru, can you talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing here?
So here I've been visiting one particular tribe in the Amazon called the Shipibo, for two reasons. One is their beautiful textiles. I work in textiles, and with the Kuna, I think these are the two tribes that impress me most, their work. So I'm interested in developing a further relationship with that. They also have a lot of knowledge about still producing traditionally using natural dyes, and connected to that, their textile patterns are actually channeled visions using a sacred plant, ayahuasca, that they drink for many reasons, but one of them is to have patterns like this that they can take from here and put them into this physical world in the form of textiles. And there's a lot of symbology behind the patterns, symbolism having to do with protection from evil spirits and many other things that I'm not really well educated about.
And as you have lived in the Amazon jungle with the Shipibo people, have you worked with the artisans?
I've really been just visiting them at this point. I haven't been in Peru very long, just a month. So I'm looking kind of to see what's here and what's possible. And so I visited and met some of them. I haven't necessarily established a strong relationship with them yet.
And you had told me earlier that you have worked with several different plant medicines, not just the ayahuasca, while you were visiting for that month in the jungle, right?
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
So ayahuasca and some of the others?
Right. So there's many plants that they use for curing different things, mind, body, and spirit. Traditionally, what is done is a plant diet. So you fix your diet towards a specific problem you're trying to solve, or direction you're trying to go in terms of growth. For example, there's one plant that artists diet for inspiration. I don't know what it's called, but essentially each plant has a diet associated with it. Some are more strict than others. The plants I was dieting were tobacco, chuchuwasi, kamalonga, and mukura. at different times. So my diet was relatively strict. There was no sugar, no salt, no fruit, nothing sweet, basically. Just really rice, the non-sweet plantains, boiled eggs, lots of rice, quinoa, maca, coca.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then as you actually worked with the medicines, can you talk a little bit about what your experience was?
Mm-hmm. So the idea is to diet one plant at a time, one or two, usually one, and take that as a either extract or tincture or concentrate each day. And as your body has the diet associated with it, the plant sticks with you. And it starts maybe appearing in your dreams or giving you a different state of awareness, or it's called a plant teacher, right? So the plant is essentially teaching you, giving you messages, and sometimes, if you're lucky, during your ayahuasca vision, the plant will appear to you and give you something, for example, an Icaro, which is a song that the curanderos, the healers, sing during the ceremonies to heal people or protect people. So different plants can give you different Icaros to keep with you. And give you other information about how to live your life, how to be healthy.
Were there any profound experiences that you've had through the ayahuasca experience, but about the whole sustainable village, sustainable communities, your path? Was there anything that you can share with us that was revealed to you through ayahuasca?
A lot of things. I don't know where to start, but
whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Okay. First, I figured out that I can do everything I want. I don't have to choose in this life to do one thing or another. All the dreams that I have, I can actually realize them. It just takes time and focus and the proper order. Can't do everything at the same time. I think one of the most important lessons that ayahuasca taught me is to help me see the world in terms of, I don't know how to start this, but looking at like systemic causes of really how the society we have is a projection of our own awareness, consciousness, or unconsciousness. It's a projection of our desires and fantasies, and that we created it based on that. So really, if we want to change the way that this world looks materially, we have to change the way we think and change the way we dream and change what we're projecting and figure out what we want, like how we want to see our world and have those thoughts and feelings. And from there, from that conceptual level, we can project that and then slowly make it a physical reality. That's one of the real lessons it taught me, is how to project dreams into this material plane.
So what's next?
What's next?
For you?
Okay, well, I'm thinking I'm going to return to the United States and possibly go to graduate school in one of two fields, either sustainable development, international development, or transpersonal psychology. I haven't decided which one yet. I would like to do both, maybe in one order or the other. It's really a question if political change is the way to pursue what I want to do, or is it change on an individual level, and I'm leaning towards the second one. But I think that they can be paired in the context of creating spaces that can facilitate healing and developing of individuals, and creating a place where people can come and realize what exactly they want to do in this life and how they can do it. So I can see that as
something that works together.
Right, as a goal, as something that I would like to start doing now, but I know that I still have a lot of learning to do.
Well, it sounds like you've rolled up your sleeves and you've you've done a lot of that learning. You've started the investigation, both from inside and both outside. If you had one piece of advice to give to somebody who's attracted to either sustainable living or being a part of a community that was dedicated to sustainable living, or even exploring some of the indigenous plant medicines, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who has only experienced it through a book or through the internet?
Well, go do it. Figure out what you want to do. And I've made my website around this kind of person looking for different experiences, and tried to compile information of many different opportunities and availabilities of what's out there for communities, like intentional communities, indigenous communities, centers that work with plant medicines. And so there are many different opportunities. Pretty much whatever you want to learn about is out there. You just have to find it and go try it out, and there's nothing to lose.
Right, and can you share your website?
It's projectnuevomundo.org, projectnuevomundo.org, and yeah, it's about connecting communities together and sharing different projects about what is existing right now and where to find it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you a hug. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope it's not another 2 years until we see each other again.
I'll be back here soon.
Fantastic.